Welcome to the Top Dog Mindset Podcast, where we unlock the secrets of running a successful dog training business. I'm your host, Kevin, joined by my co-host, Angel. Together, we bring you expert insights, inspiring stories, and practical tips. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, we're here to provide you with the necessary information to build a thriving dog training company. So relax, join us with a cup of coffee as we explore the Top Dog Mindset Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. Another episode here of the Top Dog Mindset Podcast. And we have a very interesting topic for you guys today. So Angel and I were talking about this before the call. And what we decided to talk about is, since we talked about positivity last week, we're actually going to be talking about the other side of the coin, which is negativity this week. So I see this manifesting for a lot of different business owners in many different ways. And one of the most common areas I see this manifesting in is just the way that they perceive the world, the way that they perceive their entire business, the way they perceive hiring people or signing up new clients. And a good example of that may be you get a new lead that comes in, you're really excited, and you're like, great, here can be somebody who can be a client. And then you talk to them, and because you've been running your business for a couple different years and you've had negative experiences and you've had really difficult clients and just situations that you want to avoid altogether having to deal with ever again, you start kind of imposing those previous situations onto this new lead. So what I mean by that is you think about, oh man, this new lead, Sarah, really reminds me of that one client, John, that I had, who was an absolute nightmare. And I just never want to talk to that person again. And they're kind of giving me the same kind of vibe or energy. And so you can kind of start writing people off from the start. Another version of this may be like hiring. So I've had to work through this with a lot of different clients of ours saying, hey, just because you had one bad experience, just because you had one person that you hired that didn't work out and hey, they kind of left you high and dry, doesn't mean that everybody's going to do that. And so, Angel, I'd love to hear from you and just kind of how you see negativity manifesting in dog trainers' businesses and just people's lives altogether.
Yeah, well, I like the fact that you use the word pessimism, because I feel like that's really like the main thing that people need to be conscious of, because like with negativity, I mean, it can obviously mean like so many different things and go so many different ways, but I think of negativity as more so like outright saying something bad or thinking something bad, versus I guess pessimism is like a lighter version of that. And so using an example with, someone referring to their leads of like someone calls in, ask for a price over the phone. Like maybe that's the first question that they ask. And then you automatically like write that person off and say like, oh, they're not serious because they're not asking any questions. They're not asking about training. They're not asking about anything. Like they're just worried about the price right off the bat. They're not going to be committed to training or anything like that. Like they're just a price shopper, without thinking of the possibilities of the fact that maybe this is the first time they've ever owned a dog. They don't know what else to ask. They don't know that, so much more goes into training than just, hey, teach my dog to sit and lay down and walk nicely on a leash, And then to go back to what you were saying too, of like, thinking that, or maybe having a bad experience with one client and then the next lead that you get in, they kind of remind you of that past person. And so you kind of write them off. I've experienced this as well. And there's so many times where I've had phone conversations and in-person consults and stuff like that with people. And I am thinking right off the bat, like, this person is a little bit annoying. Like, maybe there's a little bit of pessimism there that I've had, but this person is a little annoying. Like, they're kind of acting like a know-it-all, or, they're just difficult right off the bat. And sure, I could have written those people off and be like, okay, you're difficult, I don't want to work with you. But still going through the consultation, I have found that, okay, this person is a little bit difficult, but it just took, it just took me being maybe a little bit more firm with them for them to realize like, okay, this isn't how it goes. It doesn't go my way. And then they realize like, listen to the person that you called for help, listen to the professional kind of thing. And they end up being great people to work with.
Exactly.
Other times I continue working with them and maybe they are a difficult client and I just have to navigate those relationships a little bit differently and also not be afraid to have more difficult conversations with them. But it's all about, like, not to go on like a completely different tangent, but it's just all about like communicating with people differently based on like their needs in that moment. But just going back to the negativity and the pessimism, it's something that you have to be conscious conscious about. And I know this from experience, like I feel like I get like a physical feeling whenever I'm in these moods where, you know, I start feeling like super pessimistic or negative or anything like that. And I'm just like, every thought that comes to mind is, you know, thinking the worst of something, or, you know, really anything. Like when those thoughts start going through my mind, or especially even when I start saying them out loud, it's almost like I get this physical feeling. I can just feel the negativity in my body, and I'll get to a point where I'm like, ew, like what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
and I feel like that comes from just years and years of work at changing my mindset around things in life. And so I think like the more work that you put in to get to a point of not being negative or pessimistic about like constant everyday things. Like everyone is going to have these thoughts every so often. Like we're human, it's going to happen. But when it becomes like a normal part of your being and your life, then that's when it can start affecting your life negatively or affecting your business negatively. So you just put in the work to really try to change your overall mindset. And I think that those days that are maybe a little bit harder when you do start creeping into that negative mindset, like it's going to be a lot easier to notice, and you'll be able to, you know, check yourself and reel it back a lot easier.
For sure. I think the problem also comes in when you have this pessimistic attitude towards something and then it comes to fruition, right? And you're like, this person's going to be a really difficult client, but hey, I'll just take them on anyway. And then it comes to fruition and they do turn into a difficult client. Well, first off, I would say, like, does that beg the question of, did we almost kind of manifest that and steer them into being a difficult client because of just the way that we were already perceiving the whole situation to begin with? But even if it, you know, even if it wasn't that and they just were a genuinely difficult person and they become a client, it kind of reinforces the idea, and what you're able to do, or what your mind is able to do to you, is say, see, I knew it. I told you. You should have listened to this. You should have listened to me. You should never work with people like this. And it just reinforces that belief system of using hiring as the example of, see, you did it again. You hired somebody, they screwed you over, and you'll never be able to find anybody good. Right. Mm-hmm. And I just think that you really need, as Tony Robbins says, a pattern interruption, right? You need something that's going to break that negative feedback loop. So we were talking about positivity last week, and we were talking about how you can get stuck in kind of a positive feedback loop where everything feels like it's working. Your diet is super dialed in, you're going to the gym, your business is doing well, you're in a great relationship, whatever it may be. Like everything in life feels like it's clicking for you, right? You're getting exactly what you wanted out of life. And then you can get stuck in the negative feedback loop where you feel like nothing is working, right? My business sucks. I don't have time to eat. I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to have relationships or friends or whatever it is. And it's just the way that you view the world at that point. And you just get stuck and you manifest kind of negativity. You manifest bad things happening. And this may be difficult for a lot of people to hear, but the reason I'm talking about this is because I've experienced this firsthand. I know that I need a pattern interruption when I get off of a client call or a conversation with a lead and I'm like angry about the interaction. I'm like, dude, you need to change your attitude quick, or that's going to start manifesting and kind of rolling into everything that you do.
Right. Yeah, I have a story to share actually about how my morning went the other day. Because I feel like this is a really good example, because I, in that moment, was very conscious of like what I was feeling and like the thoughts that were coming to mind and stuff like that. And I had to interrupt that so that way it wouldn't just like screw up the rest of my day. But yeah, it was a morning time. I woke up like super groggy, like I got terrible sleep. So wasn't like the best start to the morning. And I am going out. I'm like driving around and I had two people nearly run me off the road. And
wow.
And then I ended up getting pulled over. All of this happened within a matter of like 20 minutes.
Wow.
So the first person, it was an older man, very short, cute little old man, and yeah, he almost ran me off the road, and of course that upset me. And then when the second person did it, that made me even more mad. And so because it was like a buildup, you know, and the fact that they were not in their lane, but that's besides the point. So yeah, that made me even more mad. And then when I got pulled over, it was kind of like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, do I just need to go home? So at that point, that's when these thoughts started coming through my head of like, okay, this is an absolute shit day already. Like, it's not even the afternoon yet. All of this stuff is happening and it's only been like 25 minutes. Let me just go home, because if I keep driving, then clearly something else fucked up is gonna happen. You know what I mean? Like, I just have the worst luck today, got terrible sleep. And these are all things that are like going through my mind just because of those 3 events that happened like in a row. And I could like I said, I can like physically feel this stuff like in my body, and it got to that point where I could like feel it, and I obviously I don't enjoy that feeling, and so I had to kind of like interrupt it, and I'm like, no, like, just go. Bad morning, who cares? Like, the rest of the day will be fine. Like, the first guy that almost ran me off the road, maybe it was just a genuine mistake. Second one, also maybe a genuine mistake, and I just so happened to be the person that got it twice in a row. And same thing with like getting pulled over. My fault, but all of these things just so happen in the same freaking 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, it's fine. And not to get like spiritual or anything like that, but then I was thinking like, okay, maybe I got pulled over because if I hadn't, then maybe the third person would have actually ran me off the road. So it's like, thinking of it in kind of an optimistic way.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of all of this as I was in the car, like with the cop behind me doing his thing, writing me a freaking citation.
No, how bad?
Then, I mean, not terrible. I will say that by the time he left and I left, like, all of the anger was out of my body because I like checked myself that quickly. And yeah, it's literally just a matter.
We need to know now. What were you doing? Were you speeding, or did you blow through like a red light or something, or what happened?
No, I did not do anything wrong, except I did not renew my tags.
Okay, so yeah, you weren't actually doing anything wrong. Okay.
Yeah. So
you weren't like doing donuts in like a grammar school parking lot or something like that.
Yeah, but still, it was like inevitably my fault because I should have been responsible and getting those renewed. But yeah, it was just like, it's just a matter of like recognizing like these feelings and like these thoughts and all of that kind of stuff, and just being able to check yourself in that moment. And that's what I did. I still drove to where I needed to go. I had a great rest of the day, and yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, the problem with the visceral reaction that you're kind of describing, because I get that too. Like, I can literally feel my blood starting to like boil, and like something like in my stomach, like it just wants to like almost like come out, and I just want to like scream or something like that, you know, in certain situations. As dramatic as that may sound, but I'm sure a lot of people listening to this have experienced something like that. But the problem is the rage that you feel, or that you want to let out, or the anger, although it may feel justified, talking shit about the cop, or going off on the DMV because it's too hard to get the tags. Or, you know, this is kind of a very specific situation. But I think with anything in life, like even if somebody does something to you that really rubs you the wrong way, and then you go and proceed to talk shit about them to your family or your friends, or your joint friend group, it gives you this illusion of power. It gives you this feeling of control. And that's really what I think a lot of this stems from, is you feel that your life is out of control, and you feel like, I'm stuck, just everything is crap. I'm stuck in this negative feedback loop. There's nothing that's going to disrupt this. There's just this negative cloud of energy hanging over my head. And the only way that you feel like you can grab some sort of control is by getting really angry or doubling down. And ironically, it's the last thing that you should actually be doing with that situation.
Yeah, and I think like once you put in the work to get to that point, the reason why it's so easy to recognize it in yourself is because you also recognize it in other people. You know, if you're having conversation with someone, it's just like self-pity and like excuse after excuse and complaining about everything, or like saying rude and mean things about other people like for no reason at all. You will start recognizing those things. And so in the event that you kind of slip into it again and you start having those thoughts and those feelings, it's so much easier to recognize.
Yes.
Because like I said, you understand, like, it's a physical feeling, but I also will like usually say out loud, like, ew, I'm being annoying right now. Like, I'm actually annoying myself. What am I doing, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because I recognize it in other people when they do it, so it's so easy for me to recognize it in myself too.
Yeah, and it's so interesting how the spiritual and the emotional affects the physical, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So you are literally having this like emotional moment, this like distress that you're facing, and it's having a physical reaction with your body. And we all know that stress leads to so many different physical complications for you. Like it shortens your lifetime. Your hair goes gray. It falls out of your head, or because you're stressed, you release different like chemicals in your body that make you retain weight more than normally would, and stuff like that. So all of this stuff, this is a business podcast, and we're talking about something that's a little bit like esoteric here. But at the end of the day, all of this stuff is so related to your business. If you don't have your mental well-being and you don't have your emotions in check, which I've met a lot of people who really do not have their emotions in check. And clients, people who are past clients, just dog trainers I've spoken to, somebody asked for my advice on something, and they're dealing with an annoying client. I have to like talk them off the ledge of going nuclear on this person. And the thing that's so interesting is going back to what I was saying before, like you feel like if you rage and you really tell this person you give them a piece of your mind and tell them what they need to hear, what you think they need to hear, that you're going to be vindicated and it's going to make you feel better. When in reality, what it's really going to do is tear down your business. Because now you're not going to win that war with somebody. Because if they really want, they can just go trash you online, right? They can go and leave a negative review for you. They can go and post in local Facebook groups about you. There's so many different things that they can do. So yeah, you may feel like you won the battle, but you lost the war. So
Exactly.
This is all just about like staying level-headed, not letting your emotions get the best of you, not falling into a state of constant negativity. Because as soon as you do that, then you can't even focus on running a business. There's no amount of tactical, strategic stuff that you can do that's going to outperform just a really, really pessimistic attitude.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, that goes for like literally everything, not just maybe losing your shit on an annoying person or a bad client or something who's trying to like badmouth your business or something like that, but even like those comments that you're making about people internally, about leads that are coming in and they're not the perfect lead, or they're a bad quality lead, or they're not serious. Like the thoughts that you're having about those, same thing applies. Or the pessimistic thoughts about why you don't want to hire someone because you don't trust people, or because you don't have the time to train them, or what if I can't pay them long term, and stuff like that. And granted, I think a lot of that is like, it starts with like a pessimistic thought, but also can kind of stem from like fear and just like making excuses as to why you don't want to move forward in your business, or take on more clients and stuff like that. It's all like really like rooted in together, but I think it starts with those pessimistic thoughts.
Yep. 100%. Yeah, I think you just touched on something that's really true, which is it's all, in my opinion, everything in life boils down to fear, effectively. Any negative emotion that you're experiencing is rooted in some type of fear. So if you don't get down to that, and it may just be, hey, you can't trust people because you as a child grew up in a household where you felt like you had to only rely on yourself and you couldn't trust your parents or your siblings. And so this is the type of stuff that, again, like if you don't dig into this and figure this stuff out, you're always going to have a problem with relationships in life. You're always going to struggle as far as like, why am I so confrontational? Why is there so much drama in my life? Right? Yeah. Cut that stuff out of your life. Like if anybody's listening to this, and even if one person takes this to heart, is really drastically evaluate your life and think about, do I attract negativity because I put it out there into the universe? Do I attract drama because I'm dramatic? Because if that's the case, and all of us are guilty of this, right? Carve that stuff out of your life like it's a cancerous tumor in your body. Like get rid of it like as quickly and with as much aggression as you would attack something like that. Because you have a cancerous mindset is really what it comes down to, and there's all these people throughout time, who all talk about the power of positive thinking and the power of forgiveness, and how forgiveness is not about you, right? Or it's not about the other person. It's about you, not in a selfish way, but it's about if you don't forgive that person, if you don't kind of turn the other cheek, right? In Christianity, if you don't turn the other cheek, then it's like what you're doing is carrying the yoke and the weight of that burden of what somebody did to you. And they're unaffected by it largely. It's you're the one that's suffering with this. So Angel, I mean, how have you seen that like kind of like affect you? Because I know that you've done a lot of mindset work in your life. And like, how have you found ways to kind of cut out the negativity and drama and kind of like let go of the past?
I mean, I would say, first of all, just like being more firm in setting boundaries in a lot of different ways, whether that's boundaries with people or boundaries within myself, you know, making myself do things or stick to certain things that I tell myself I'm going to do or maybe not do. And then the other thing is like releasing this feeling of feeling like I'm in control of the way other people feel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to an extent, like if someone is upset or like lashing out or just being like rude and negative towards me, you know, rather than maybe taking it personally and feeling like it's a personal attack or something like that person might have their own demons, or maybe they have something going on today, or maybe they have like maybe a family member of theirs like just passed away and that's all they're focused on. Like they just don't have the mental bandwidth to, you know, go through their day and like still show kindness to others. And obviously that's like totally not expected. Like people are going to have those days, but like being more like thoughtful of those things of like other people have things going on. I don't need to take it personally. Like your big feelings that you have going on are your responsibility, and I'll just kind of like take it with grace kind of thing. But also going back to the example that you brought up about, I think you maybe said like talking about like hiring or something like that. So if one of your holdups with hiring or with really doing anything in your business is because maybe you don't trust people, you don't want to trust another person to take on your board and trains, or you don't trust someone else to be responsible for the phones because you don't know if they're going to have as good of conversations with leads as you are. That's fine. If you're not in a place where you can let go of that or figure out how to move past that, then that's fine. That will be figured out later on. But as long as you're okay with how things are now.
Yeah.
As long as you're okay with, if you're not willing to hire someone because you don't trust them to answer your phone, you have to be okay with making other changes within yourself or within your business so that way you do have the time to answer all of those phone calls.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
it's like, it's one of those things where like people can make one excuse for why they can't do something in their business, but then they're still complaining about where they're currently at. You have to be okay with one or the other.
That is extremely well said. Yeah. What I always think about is when people talk about, oh, you can't hire anybody, nobody wants to work hard for you, and everyone just, you know, whatever, like all the litany of things that people say about hiring people. My first thing is, have you posted a job listing once? Or did you just hear that from somebody else and you just took it as the God's honest truth and you never even tried it yourself? Because you may be taking really bad business advice from somebody that if you were to go and just experience it yourself, you would have a completely opposite experience from them, right? That's the first thing. The second thing I would say is if you really can't find people to hire, if there's really no good dog trainers out there, then how do these big box retailer companies, you know, love them or hate them, think their training is the greatest thing in the world or the worst thing in the world? Everyone who's listening to this knows who I'm talking about. I'm not going to name any names unless I get a sponsorship, which I haven't been reached out to yet. But how do they hire people in New Jersey when they're headquartered in Arizona? Right? How do they hire people in California, Washington, Arkansas, all these different places, all across the country, right? It's because they know how to recruit. And that is a skill that you probably haven't developed yet. And yeah, it's no fault of your own. You've never been in a position where you've had to recruit people. You've never been in a position where you need to hire people and train people, right? So what these companies do extremely well, whether, again, love them or hate them, is they have actual systems and mechanisms in place to attract talent, to get people in and have a pool of people that they can pick from. And then they have a real process to train them. So unless you have something like that, don't just throw your hands up in the air and say, oh, you can't hire somebody. Yeah, like you hired your friend's little sister or something like that, and she was unreliable and wanted to scroll TikTok the entire day. It's like, yeah, she probably was never a good fit in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But I think like something you were saying before is so true, is like you just need to realize like there's things that may need to change in your business, right? If you have that attitude, that negativity of I can't afford to hire somebody, guess what? You probably need to sell more, and or you need to probably both, or you need to raise your prices. It's probably a combination of those two things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't just get to sit there and be negative and say, I can't afford to hire somebody. It's like, dude, you're the one making the decisions here. You're the one who's completely in control of this business. Go make some sales, go raise your prices, book your business out so you feel comfortable raising your prices, and then you'll have the money to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But unless you're doing that and actively pursuing that on a daily basis, and you're just sitting there kind of like, I can't afford it, boo hoo, poor me, it's like, dude, there's people that are out there. If that's how you're going to behave in your business, there are serious killers out there who are going to run circles around you and they're going to put you out of business. So go get to work.
Exactly. Like when you decide to start a business, you don't just start it and then the business itself is like, okay, we're perfect. Like everything is going smoothly. You know what I mean? So it's like if you're not willing to make changes or hire where you need to, or open to feedback and open to change within yourself and within your business and within your processes and even like your personality. We've talked about this before where people are like, I'm just not good at that part. So, I am the way that I am and blah, blah, blah. Like you're not open to change and everything is an excuse and everything is, yeah, but blah, blah, blah. Like you're always putting the blame on other people. I don't mean to sound so harsh, but maybe you shouldn't have a business then. Like you have to be willing to be open to change and actually apply it. And if something isn't working, complain about it for 2 seconds and then move on and figure out what you do need to do in order to get things to a point where it's going to work and run smoothly and you're going to, see the success that you want to see.
Exactly. The thing I always think about too is when I look back over the time of running this company and working with hundreds of dog trainers at this point and seeing the people who tend to do extremely well versus seeing people who struggle. We have a client, Bethany, and I'm just naming her because I know she would not mind. And I'll probably have her on here sooner rather than later because I'd love to kind of have you guys hear from her as well. But something that really strikes me about Bethany and a lot of other people we've worked with as well is she would probably tell you, especially when she first got started in her business, that yeah, she didn't pride herself on being like the world's greatest dog trainer, right? She didn't like compete in different sports and wasn't a member of all these different clubs and stuff like that. And there were certain things about her story in the beginning that she was very uncertain of. And she would tell me like, hey, I don't feel like I'm great at that, or I feel like I can't do this because of this. But what she was and still is very open-minded. I actually have a meeting with her later today, but she's very open-minded to change. And she would ask me my opinion and we would discuss it and we would come to an agreement of like, hey, this is either a good idea or this may not work because of this situation. And she would implement it. And now they're operating, a business making $500,000 to $750,000 a year, right? And so there's a lot of people out there who want the results, but they don't want to hear what it actually requires for them to do it. And so I think the number one prerequisite for a really good entrepreneur, someone who's going to own a really successful dog training business, is open-mindedness. And it can be hard. It can be hard to hear the honest truth sometimes of, hey, the way you're doing this isn't working. Because what that means is you're going to need to change. And change is always extremely uncomfortable. But I can promise you guys, like if you're open-minded and you're just go to whoever you're working with, whether it's a coach or something like that, and they say to you, hey, you need to change this thing, and just be open-minded to it and not say like, well, that won't work because of this. Or, hey, you need to do in-person consultations because we're looking at the statistics here. And when you do in-person consults, you close 80%. And when you do them over the phone, you actually close, I know you feel like you close 30 or 40%, you really close 7% when we go back and evaluate it. Well, it's just easier to do it that way, right? Everybody in life who are the greatest of all time, they all had coaches. They all had people they listened to, right? Michael Jordan had a coach. Think about that. Like at the height of his career, he had a coach. Mike Tyson had a coach. Tiger Woods had a coach. Arnold Schwarzenegger had a posing coach. Like all of these people have coaches in their life. They have people to show them the way to do things, and they're open-minded and they listen to them. But for some reason, it's so easy when you're a business owner just to try and figure it out. And figure it out yourself, I should say. I was listening to somebody talk about this the other day, and he said something that he says a lot of his prospects on sales calls, and you guys could probably, put this into your consultations as well, is saying to people honestly, like, hey, you could probably figure it out if you want. And then people will start being like, okay, well, if I could figure out, why would I hire you? And the thing is like, hey, the information's out there. You could figure out how to train your dog, but it just depends on, do you want to deal with these behaviors for the next 3 years until you figure it out? Or do you want to be done with this in 6 weeks? So it's the same thing with us. It's like, hey, you could probably figure out how to run ads and get leads in and build out a really good sales process and automations in your pipeline. But do you really want to leave $800,000 on the table over the next 4 years while you try and do that, or the next 3 years? Because that's what you're really doing. It's like, that is the debt that you're carrying with you every single day, right? It's like, if you want to make $1 million in your business, or you want to make $500,000 in your business, and right now you're making 50, and next year you're going to make 55, and the next year you're going to make 60, and that's the kind of growth that you're seeing. But you invest in a real marketing agency, a real coach to really help you through all of this, and they can help expedite that and get you to a point where you're making $250,000, then 400,000 and 500,000 in a couple of years. It's like, yeah, you paid some money to do it, but on the back end, you returned hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, this has been kind of on my mind, because I think I was never told this stuff. And it took me some time to discover this myself. And once I unlocked this is when I started seeing the biggest leaps and bounds in my business. We're at the hour here. So I hope you guys got some value out of this. And as always, we really appreciate you guys listening to this, liking it, sharing it. And if there's anything that you really want us to talk about, make sure to leave it in the comments below, and we'll do our best to get to it. So as always, thank you very much, guys. We appreciate you. And we will see you guys all very soon in the next one. See you guys.
Bye, guys.